Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 19 of Let's Book Talk. Today we're speaking with Corri Rose, the author of Knife to the Heart. We had a great conversation about the book, what it's like writing, these moral struggles within these stories, and so much more. I hope you guys enjoy it, so without further ado, here's my conversation with Corri Rose. Where did you find your passion for storytelling?
It really started when I was maybe about 10, 11 years old. My siblings all started doing like sports and hockey mainly. I was the odd one out, didn't want to do that. So it was love of books and then slowly transferred into writing.
Awesome. And were you ever thinking of like maybe other ways of storytelling, whether it be, um, movies and film and that sort of thing, or was it always writing for you?
It's almost always been writing.
Hmm.
I would often write in like the three subject notebooks and just absolutely fill those as a kid. And my audience was my brothers. So daily I'd be like, listen to what I have written. And they'd sit there and just listen. And they were really my first like supporters and my first
Yeah.
audience with everything. So they help fuel everything that I've done so far.
Did you feel that writing came easy to you, like as you were doing it?
Um, when I was younger, it was definitely kind of easy because it's like, okay, you can kind of do anything and everything. You don't
Hmm.
really have access to like the internet as much as like I do now. So anything and everything's possible. But now I'll sit for like 20, 30 minutes and research the engine of a car.
Right, right.
But I mean, yeah, overall it's almost always been easy. You still get the writer's block. Like I had writer's block earlier, well, for the last couple of days actually,
Hmm.
for an enemies to lovers that I'm writing. So I finally got it.
Awesome. That's got to be one of the best feelings is when you have writer's block for a bit and then you get through it and you're like, okay, I feel like I can really get into the meat of the story now.
Yeah, finally. It's been like
Yeah.
4 days.
Oh my goodness. Um, Kind of on that same track, when you're writing, do you have like any influences or inspirations that you kind of not so much writing like those authors but maybe seeing how they craft their stories and kind of trying to sprinkle that in your own writing?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a really big Anna Huang fan. I have right now almost all of her books.
Hmm.
I love her to death, and I'm slowly going into oh, I think it's Lauren Asher. She wrote like the fine print terms and
Mm,
conditions.
yeah,
Um, and her writing is really good as well. So I definitely try and take from those and I want them to influence me in like a good way. I don't want to steal from them, so
right.
but definitely try and use it in a good way to help influence my own writing.
I feel like that's always the that fine line that you have to walk across of like you want
Oh
to
yeah.
be you don't want to copy anything. And I'm guilty of that sometimes. I come from a journalism background. So when I've been trying to, write a story, I don't want to plagiarize, obviously.
Oh
You
yeah.
want to make it your own thing as much as you can. Um, what's been your favorite part thus far of working on not only Knife to the Heart and Bleeding Heart and everything else you're working on? What's been your favorite part thus far?
My favorite part is posting like teasers.
Mm,
Right now, I'm in the process of self-editing before I send it to my editor, an Insta love story. So I love
mhm.
posting the teasers and then I love going in and, picking out those teasers. And sometimes it's like the funniest parts that had me
Yeah.
laughing for like 20 minutes. um, but yeah, it's those teasers that, and then you see the reactions that everybody gets, and it really
Yeah.
starts to hype you up to continue to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like those teasers can also not only just to drum up the excitement, but I feel like from a creative standpoint in a different way, it gives you like a little bit of an outlet to be like, oh man, I
Yeah.
know this is what people would like, at least I hope. And then you throw it out there and gauge reactions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely kind of hard to transfer from posting about mainly Knife to the Heart and
Hmm.
now the Insta Love book, so that transition was kind of weird.
Hmm.
But slowly posting about that Insta Love has kind of gotten people slowly into it. I'm getting more engagement on Instagram, but that.
Well, hey, any way it works, right?
Yeah,
That's always what we're
right.
looking for. So I actually do want to talk about Knife to the Heart, obviously. I read it today and I loved it, as you already know. Um, one of the characters that I really liked and I found really interesting was Sage. And before I get into it, guys, probably gonna have some spoilers in here. So if you don't want to hear the spoilers, turn this off, go read the book, and then come back. Um, but I thought she was just a really interesting character and somebody that, as you're reading the story, those like little seeds of doubt start to get planted of like, is she involved in this? Is she not? Um, did you ever intend for her to betray Rose at any point while you were writing the story, or was that just purely, your author brain saying, "All right, I'm gonna make you think, but there's no way this is happening." Yeah.
Originally she was going to.
Okay.
Um, but my editor actually kind of turned it and she was like, I feel like this almost came out of left field.
Mm.
So I reworked a lot of scenes. Um, but originally she was going to. I reworked, I think maybe 3 or 4 chapters to kind of, okay, she's not going to fully betray, but there's still going to be like those little bits and pieces of, oh,
Hmm.
she used to work with Maeve, so she kind of knows how she works. And I mean, even just like essentially working with the enemy, granted, like a while ago, still kind
Yeah.
of plants those, okay, is she still going to be on my side? Is she still going to support me like the friend that she is? Or is she going to, you know, go
Right.
back to Maeve? But originally it was going to happen. And then some of the feedback I got was just, it didn't work out as well as it should have. So
Mm.
this version was definitely got a lot better um, feedback.
Got it. The funny thing was, I didn't even catch, the stuff that Jackson brings up when he's talking to her at the house, when he was like, why didn't you go and, immediately try and save her? Why did you wait? I'm reading that, I'm like, oh wait, that's right. She really didn't try and save her that quickly. Um, was there anything else in the story that is, while you were writing it, was different than the way that things played out, other than, Sage and her motivations?
There was originally the scene after that where Rose first finds out that Sage essentially didn't come and like try to get the gunman away from
Hmm.
her. Um, and she reacts kind of poorly to it.
Mm.
Um, and that too got really bad criticism to it, saying that like for the most part of the book, she hasn't been overly mean to Sage, so it was kind of out of left field.
Hmm.
But yeah, originally she was going to react more poorly than what she did.
Yeah.
Um, like they would have gotten into a whole full blown fight. So,
Wow.
and I mean like fist fight.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That
that was definitely a big change of the book.
that's something that I was bracing myself for just because of the, you had written that she, white knuckled as Parker was telling her everything. And then I was like, oh no, things are gonna go bad now. But it was more so like that hurtful feeling
Mhm.
of, why didn't you tell me? And, things like that. But that was really one of my favorite parts in the book, as well as another part that kind of caught me off guard in a really good way was when Rose was in the hospital and then immediately um, that man shows up and tries to suffocate her with the pillow. I was like, whoa, where is everybody? And then that becomes, a bit of a plot point there with the security issues. Um, but I did want to talk about that pivotal point towards the end of the book when Rose and Parker keep going back and forth of like, if I kill her, will you still kind of back me up and everything? When writing that or when you started to write that in the story of like that being a really crucial, you know, situation and decision that both these characters have to really come to grips with, what was your goal with that? Was it like asking the reader, what would you do? Or like how far would you go for someone you loved? Or was there another theme in there as well?
Um, it was more of just how like moral can I get this character to stay?
Mm,
Because it's obviously like this is his wife. He's loved her for many, many years. They're very close.
yeah.
Um, but she because I have detailed that she's never killed anyone. She's just kind of like to the brink of death, and
Yeah.
that's where she stops because she knows that if she goes any further, that's when she can really get into some trouble.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, Rose knows that if she doesn't kill Maeve, then it's going to get worse and worse and worse until she or someone she loves ends up dead.
Yeah.
So, and he knows that as well. Jackson knows that, but because of the whole cop thing, they're like, okay, we have to still do our job. We have to
Hmm.
like doesn't at this point it doesn't matter how much I love you, but at the same time it's like I love you to absolute death and I want to support you, but I can't.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like that really gray line of
Right.
how moral can I stay while also supporting the one I love while doing my job.
How hard was it for you to write that scene when Parker sees what she did and
Oh, I
has
loved
to
it.
put her? Oh, did you?
I absolutely loved it. I was like, how heartbreaking can I make this?
Oh, great. Oh my God. You know, that's so funny you mentioned that because I feel like authors just love to do that. They love to just put the
I
reader through it any
I
chance they get.
absolutely love doing it. Um, my current work in progress, Worship Love, and I won't do any spoilers for this,
Hmm.
but there is definitely a scene where one of my beta readers was like, she's like, I'm on the edge of my seat, and this is a romance.
Hmm.
So I love writing those just heartbreaking scenes. It's my favorite thing to do. I don't know
Why
what it is
though?
about it, but
You just
it's so much fun.
it I feel like in a weird way, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like those scenes can really like it's almost like a bit of a challenge to yourself. Like, okay, how can I write this to a point where if I were reading it, I would just like have this emotional reaction? And how can
Mhm.
I make that go to like a 10, for everybody?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think there was a point where I did start to kind of choke up.
Mm,
And I think it was when he was arresting her and
yeah.
she's like, let me explain myself. And then he starts to read her rights. And I was like, wait a
Yeah.
second. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is like actually really sad.
Yeah, it was super sad and a weird connection, but I think it works here. It reminded me a lot of the scene in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse when Gwen faces her dad and she takes off the mask and her
Oh yeah.
dad sees that, he still thinks that she had killed Peter Parker and now she's trying to explain it to him and he does the same thing. He's
Hmm.
like, I have to take you in, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, those moments always tear me up. It never fails. Um, Another thing that I thought was really interesting in how you wrote this story was there's often the case where, especially with a couple, one doesn't know to the full extent what the other is doing. Like if somebody else would have wrote this story, they might have made it where Parker's a cop, but he doesn't know that Rose is a vigilante. Like she
Hmm.
says, "Oh, I'm gonna go do this," and then she goes and does that. Why did you make that choice of having both of them kind of doing the same thing, but in different, going about it in different ways?
I loved the irony of it.
Mm,
Just how two people that are just so in love working both sides or like
mm,
different sides of the law. Um, I had this was originally like a fan fiction,
hmm.
and I loved the concept of it so much that I was like, I gotta do more with this.
Yeah.
And just the yeah, it's still the like two very different sides of the law, and
Hmm.
he's trying to keep her out of troubles, but also let her do her own thing because he knows that she's just as stubborn as can be and is going to do it regardless
Right.
if he says yes or no.
Yeah.
So it's the irony of it.
And I'm glad you brought that up because you do get that um that really protective nature of him throughout the whole book. Hey, don't go out, I'm worried about you, and she still goes. And of course, when she does leave, things happen. Um, so I really like that the marriage itself really was not strained at all throughout the story until obviously the very end where he has to arrest her. Um, Now, in those 10 years, do you have in your mind like um thoughts of what might have happened within those 10 years while she was in prison? Or is that just it was 10 years, now she's out, and now we're getting into the second book?
I with the second book, it'll kind of detail
Mm,
um what happened. I'm not going to lay heavy on it
sure.
because the second book is definitely going to be a little bit more action packed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it'll be detailed in the second book that he did visit as well as Jackson and just how often they visited and how much he kept her in the loop of everything. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe that is detailed at the end as well, if I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, it is. It is. I didn't know if maybe within those 10 years there might have been just something else that would have happened to any of the characters outside of the prison as well. Because I know there's that moment with I believe it was Noah that says something right at the end of the trial. I don't know if you might have tried to do something in those 10 years as
Hmm.
well. So um with that, is there anything you can tell us about the second book? Or are you still keeping those details pretty
Um,
under wraps?
I have I I have what I want to do with the second book. It's just a matter of also getting to that point because I have
Hmm.
to do a little bit more building and all of that. But Noah definitely comes back,
Okay.
um, as well as his partner. Silas and Elias come back as well. I liked writing just kind of like they're ditzy.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
don't really have a whole lot going on, but they're still loyal to a point.
Right.
Um, I also absolutely loved writing Maeve. Um, and yeah, I loved writing her. I loved the scene with her and Silas, Elias, and Noah, and
Hmm.
God, now I can't remember
Oh,
the
is it
other guy's
James?
name. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like the five of them, and she's
Hmm.
like, "I need you guys to do this," and I think it's Silas. He says no, and
Yeah.
then just how quick her anger can be set off. I loved it.
What was there anyone that you found inspiration from for Maeve's character?
No,
No?
she was just purely off the top of my head. I did watch a lot of Criminal Minds.
Okay.
Um, so it's, I guess, from some of the unsubs, like some of their characteristics and all of that. But
Hmm.
um, I am a very heavy true crime person. I listen to true crime podcasts all the time. So I'm
Yeah.
listening to a lot of those as well. Um, I had posted to my Instagram like fun facts about the book and
Yeah.
how there isn't a playlist for it, but for all of my
Mm.
other romance books, there's going to be. And it's purely because I listen to just mainly true crime.
That's awesome though. I feel like that can also give you like even further insight into, motivations of different
Hmm.
kinds of people and which I think is super interesting. Um So, changing gears here for a second, if you wanted to talk a little bit about what you're working on right now and how that whole process is going.
So I am working on a Insta Love um romance where it's um a small town girl getting away from her abusive ex and then this guy who's also getting away from his cheating ex, and for a while they're like, I'm not going to do anything, like
Hmm.
I'm going to work on myself. But when they meet, it is literally instant and it's so cute. Um, I'm gonna be sending it off to my editor in March, so I'm doing this second round of self edits,
Yeah.
which is really dragging on. Um, but he definitely has two best friends with him who are very heavily like influencing what he does. And then she has a
Mhm.
best friend with her, um, who's also going to be getting her own book as well. And it's there's a lot of really funny parts. There's a scene in there that I actually got from a TikTok.
Oh, really?
And I found it so like cute and how the TikTok is all these guys singing "Call Me Maybe," just very off key and just having so much fun.
Hmm.
So I put that in there, and the whole scene is it's fun, it's cute, but there's also a lot on the line, because she is going to be debating on whether she goes home or not.
Mm.
So um, yeah, there's there's definitely a scene that made me cry heavily.
And let me guess, you enjoyed writing that one.
I enjoyed it so much.
That's awesome.
I My beta readers are like, "How dare you rip my heart out?" And I'm like, "Well,
It's like that's what I do best.
yes."
Um, so when can people, obviously, you're still going through edits, which actually, before I ask this question, what's the most difficult part of the editing process for you?
The self edits.
Yeah.
Um, if I don't have a deadline, I will procrastinate
Mm,
to the end of time. Um, if I have a deadline, I stick to it, which is weird because I was a procrastinator in high school and I was
hmm.
like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But this is definitely something I'm super passionate about. So I get those deadlines and I stick to it. Um, my self edits aren't necessarily like I have to do them, so that's why I'm like really dragging my feet.
Right.
But for a release, I'm aiming for June.
Okay.
I don't have a specific date because I'm going to talk a little bit with my editor, and see if we can get that date to like fruition.
Hmm.
Um, but definitely beginning to middle of June.
Awesome. I'll definitely keep my eye out for that. Um, what has been now that you're in the writing process with that one, or the editing process, I should say. You have Bleeding Heart, down the line as well. How different of an experience has it been from jumping from a story like Knife to the Heart to the one you're writing right now? Like, is your process still pretty much the same, or do you have to go about it in a different way just based on the bit of the genre change?
It's definitely different
Hmm.
considering Knife to the Heart is like a edgier seat, like something's happening
Yeah.
every chapter, and to something as sweet as Worship Love, and it's like I can still put some suspense in there, but I can't put as much as I would like.
Hmm.
So it's definitely been a little hard, but I also really love writing romances, and that's
Yeah.
having Parker and Rose's relationship be such a heavy part of Knife to the Heart and showing their love for each other helped me kind of get that romance fix.
Yeah. Which I love those moments where you kind of got a bit of their backstory of how they met and things like that, which I thought was a really nice touch. Um, Now, what has been, you know, kind of your goal with these stories, whether personally or for the reader? Like, is it a story where you really want to write and get in the reader's hands and feel their reactions to it, or is it more like a personal thing of this is what I love and I want to just keep writing these stories as long as I can?
Definitely a bit of both. I
Hmm.
love feedback. Um I love having like my friends text me and be like, "How dare you do this?"
Yeah.
Um it's that feedback keeps me fueling into doing what I love. So
Hmm.
it's definitely adding like gasoline to the fire.
Right.
So it's a very heavy burning fire.
Yeah. No, and I think that's super important to have because I feel like with anything, if you lose that, then it's like All right, how are we going to ignite that fire again? And it might
Yeah.
take a while. Um, so with that, I feel like this is a perfect question to ask as we wrap up here. For anyone that's writing their first story or currently writing a book, what advice do you have for them to just, keep going, get it done, don't, self-sabotage yourself and say it's not good until it's finished? What would you say to those people?
Write for you. And the first draft is always the first draft. You can go back and
Mhm.
edit later. Just keep going. Get it on paper. Um, I definitely struggle with that as I'm also writing an enemies to lovers book because
Mhm.
part of me is like, okay, it has to be perfect, but it's also the first draft.
Yeah.
It can You can go through 7 or 8 drafts of the same book until you deem it perfect. It doesn't matter. I think there was maybe 2 or 3 versions of Knife to the Heart before I was like, okay, I love it. This is the perfect.
Mhm.
Um, right for you. If somebody doesn't like it, that's their problem.
Yeah.
I've already gotten a couple of like bad reviews. Um, my husband came up and showed me a bad review that I got on Amazon, and I found it hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny because they took the time to buy the book, read it, and then deem
Right.
it that they didn't like it, and then write like 4 paragraphs on why they didn't like it. If they don't like it, it's their problem.
Right.
The
Right.
right people will find your book.
I love that you brought that up because I don't know if you've read her books, but Geneva Rose, who's also on TikTok, she wrote The Perfect Marriage, and I think is coming out with a new book. Um, Where the bodies are buried or where the bodies are hidden, something like that. But she made a TikTok of somebody that not only in her comments spoiled the twist in every single one of her books, and then another person wrote her, uh, I think it was an email reviewing The Perfect Marriage, and it was like a 6 paragraph essay, and she made a video about it, and I'm like, I love that authors, you all deal with it at some point. You're gonna get those people that, like you said, they still bought your book. It's like, hey, thanks. Even if you didn't like it, you still bought it and you read it. But the fact that you can turn it around and make content like that or laugh at it, I think is super important because if you don't, that stuff can just really eat at you. Like reading YouTube comments, especially for YouTubers or any content that you make, it can just really drag you down if you let it. So,
Yeah, I'd gotten my first DNF, I think, within like 3 days of releasing the book. I found it hilarious.
yeah,
I was like, you still bought the book, you still put this on Goodreads, and like you're taking time out of your day to tell others how much you hated it.
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But for one, I loved the book. Like I said, I read it in like a couple of hours. It was just so good. I couldn't put it down. So Corey, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it. Before I let you go, if you could tell people where they can find you online, where they can find the book, and where, how they can support you the best way they know how.
I'm on both Instagram and TikTok as at author Corey Rose. Um, Knife to the Heart is on Amazon as paperback and on Kindle and KU. Um, I mean, the best way to support is just engaging with everything. I try to post as often as I can with a busy work schedule, so um, it's that's the best thing you can do is support. Buy the books. I absolutely love making friends. So if you feel like you don't have enough author friends, my DMs are always open. You could message me and be like, "Hey, guess what?" And I'll message back and be like, "Oh my god, what?"
Awesome. That's so great. So, guys, y'all know what to do. Definitely go out and read Knife to the Heart. Keep an eye out for all of Corey's works in progress as well, so to see when those come out. If you read Knife to the Heart, make sure to leave a review on Goodreads or anywhere else you leave book reviews. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys, and we'll talk to y'all next week.